Ranger Reject 151 has such a huge significance to the overall story of Ranger Reject. This goes much further than just the big surprise ending though. It does a lot for the characters and themes of this series. So, buckle in, we're going to go over each detail that makes this chapter so great. As a quick reminder, if you enjoy the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Chapter 151 starts with a flashback from Aizome. In this flashback, a little girl trips next to her, but she doesn't save her due to the fact that she's carrying eggs and didn't want them to break. In a lot of hero-themed media, we always see one of the biggest qualifiers to being a hero is the innate ability to help others without thinking about it. Take My Hero Academia for example. It's the whole reason All Might chose to pass on One for All to Midoriya, because his body moved on its own to help someone else. That is not how Aizome works. She had to actively think about helping someone, and due to her rationalization, she let a little girl fall and end up with serious injuries. This, however, was something that Aizome was recalling to Blue, and so we continue on through that conversation, finding out that Aizome joined the Ranger Force because she wanted to learn how to be a hero. Ending this segment, Aizome says that she wants to protect the daily lives of people who are living in peace, only to immediately transition to a berserking Aizome tearing the city apart as the fight between the Neo Rangers and her continue. This flashback, the way that it was told while Aizome seems to be barely conscious, just feels like she is living in that moment while the rampage is happening. This part will continue in a bit, but we'll tackle everything in order. Next, the conversation continues between Kisu and D. Kisu admitting to D that he is an executive, and D immediately lunges to attack. We cut back to the fight between the Neo Rangers and Aizome, where Sakurama points out that she's drawing too much power from the Divine Dragon just like Sosei did during the three-way battle. Normally I would have skipped over this, but it's a really important line for later on. We will revisit it. We go back to D and Kisu. D is mad and screaming at Kisu to atone for the foot soldier's humiliation, but their conversation takes a different shift. Kisu admits that he felt the same way as D and asks who decided that invaders needed to fight all the time. This causes D to pause, like it activated a thought that had never occurred to him before. This particular point of the chapter is big for D. He's able to reconcile with one of the invaders. He's able to see through their eyes even for just a moment, and this is a new experience for D. The only other executive that he's really had time to talk to was Peltrola, which, as we all know, Peltrola was still aiming to take out all humans. I think this one conversation will further shape D as a character as the series continues. As a side note, we do finally get to see Kisu's power here. I honestly can't remember if we saw it during the three-way battle, but he's able to essentially influence the senses. Two normal people run up to him when D attacks him, and he says, "See not," and all they can see is black. Later on, he tells D, "Hurt not," after apologizing for his wound. So when him and Runa are fused, they can teleport and control senses, which is kind of broken. From here though, we move back to the conversation between Blue and Aizome. The super important line here is from Blue, and it sort of encases the whole ideology behind the Ranger Force. There's nothing wrong with prioritizing your own dinner over a stranger. Trying to enact justice above one's own capacity is a recipe for disaster. Just do what you can. Whether this ideology is wrong or not, it does feel selfish, especially for someone in a position of power that's supposed to help others. That leads into the second part of what he said though, trying to enact justice above one's own capacity. This is exactly what Aizome is trying to do now, but she just isn't aware that D and now the Neo Rangers are above her own capacity, and it has led to disaster. After a bit more fighting, when it looks like Aizome is on the back foot, power explodes from her, blowing off Sakurama's arm. Fortunately, it's his fake arm, so it's not too big of a deal. But then it's revealed, Aizome has transformed into something entirely different. An announcement is made that an invader has appeared and that it's a new executive. The Dragon Keepers are mobilizing. This is crazy because this brings so many more implications on how the invaders are born. Are they in fact actually humans who overuse the powers of the Dragon Gods to the point that they transform into an invader? Was Sosei close to transforming during the three-way battle? Does this have something to do with the original cast and the Phantom script? Just so many questions with so little answers. I know I pointed out last week how we hadn't seen Soma or Sosei the Third, but it does look like they're getting ready to show up to battle with one of their own turned executive. I do apologize for continuing to change things up this chapter, but it was just too big for me to try to talk about all of this unscripted. Next week we'll be back to unscripted videos unless it's another huge chapter like this, but we have questions. Zachariah Anderson asks, what if D transforms into a version of the Death Messiah? That would be cool, but that'd make D such a broken character on top of defeating the purpose of his character, always going above his level to get things done. Like, Yakushi was only defeated because he was still human and had to eat. D doesn't have that weakness. Black Fox 77 asks, doesn't it feel like Negi's setting up a moment when Peltrola shows up and tells her he's the one who killed Blue? Honestly, it did feel that way. But after this chapter, I think Aizome's completely gone, so I think the chances of that happening are long gone. Nitrox Undead asks, why don't the Rangers have a mech? I feel like eventually they will have a mech, but based on everything we've seen, I feel like it'll be some weird fleshy giant dragon god mech instead of a robot. Jacob Alonzi asks, do you think the secret weapon is a power-up? In the traditional sense, yes, it will be a power-up. I don't believe it'll be something as straightforward as like a strength boost or anything like that. I think it'll be something that utilizes and enhances his pre-existing powers. Thunderman asks, will Fighter D get his own divine artifact weapon that he can wield? I'll be honest with you, I think he already has it. I think the leg that he got from the Death Messiah will rival divine weapons once its power is realized. Then we have Jacob Balanzi's question from the 150 discussion, and he asks, in the past Greenkeeper video you discussed the duality of Chidori, and in this video you discussed the duality of D. I read this as D learning from Chidori, but I'd like to know your take. Absolutely. We've seen D replicate things that we've seen Chidori do. We've seen D actively learning from Chidori. I 100% feel like this is just another tactic that he learned from Chidori to kind of separate what he needs to do from his feelings. This is probably something that would have helped him when he originally went to take out Chidori in the Greenkeeper arc. That, however, is all for the questions in this video. If you have any, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll answer them next video. As always, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe. Otherwise, peace.